All right, welcome back to the Four League Report with my guest co-hosts. Rich Datello, who you've been introduced to, my main co-host going forward, and for the first time, our guest co-host, Nikasi Doorn. Nikasi, welcome to the program. Introduce
Oh
yourself.
man.
Biggest Bears fan this side of the Mississippi. This is, you know, we're here to talk ball. Both of these gentlemen, these distinguished gentlemen, they know their ball. So
We
what else
appreciate
is there
that.
to be said?
Thank you.
It is an honor and a privilege to be able to be on this show.
The privilege is all ours, bro. And
Happy to
thank
have
you
you.
for that. Yeah, man. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? So
Let's
a
do
little
it.
bit of rundown from the NFL. The Pro Bowl game was eliminated today. That was announced. I don't think anybody really cares. I don't know anybody who ever watched the Pro Bowl. The
Well,
players,
not at
the
least
player
this
honors
version of the
remain.
Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this version, no. I think,
This
and
version's not good.
maybe the OG version from when you guys were kids, and definitely, when I was a really young kid, they were actually tackling, in those games back then.
Bro,
So
there's that viral Sean Taylor hit, and that's from like the 2006 Pro Bowl. It's one of the most epic hits of my childhood.
yeah,
But that's like
so
the
that
only viral moment from the Pro Bowl that I remember.
yeah,
and
so
there's
the last time there
anybody
was actually a hit, I graduated high school.
that's crazy. Yeah, I feel like if there's anybody who's gonna be missing, who's gonna be bummed about the Pro Bowl not happening, it's gonna be the players because they won't get to go to Hawaii.
That's true. That ended up
Fair
being
enough.
basically a free vacation for them, for those that didn't have any plans to play in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Um, in other news, the Seattle Seahawks sale was unanimously approved to Vidad Koshla, and you'll have to forgive me if I didn't pronounce that correctly, for a record price. So that sale was finalized today. Seahawks officially under new ownership. We'll see what that looks like going forward. We also had some clarification on a really interesting scenario where there were players who may have gone back to college if they had not made NFL rosters this year. Um, that has been ruled something that is no longer going to happen at the moment. So, but um, there are still players that have eligibility that I guess never got signed to camp. So those players are going to be able to return to college because of, all the different rules now in college where you have a fifth year. So, um, very interesting. It's like the Wild Wild West, man.
Yeah,
It's like,
I have
Uh,
no idea what's going on right now with
Yeah, I
that.
mean that's pretty crazy. I mean, I know primarily the guy that I saw, the Daquan Wright, the tight end for the Browns that got waived, went back to LSU, which is that was the first time I noticed it today was when I saw that report.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And it's like the whole NIL thing, and God bless the players, they're getting paid but let's call it what it is. It's the minor leagues for the NFL now, right? It's
Yeah,
it's it's
for
no
sure.
longer it's no longer amateur football guys that are, this is semi-pro ball essentially because guys are getting paid.
Yeah,
Some guys are getting paid millions.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
that NIL thing has opened the floodgates for all of these things that are essentially impossible for the judicial system to handle. I mean, because you have all these judges making all these different rulings, and it doesn't seem like there's any clear direction for any of this. And I think the NCAA and the NIL has a lot of work to do to get these things figured out sooner than later because it's why what's his name for Ole Miss tried to get sixth year of eligibility and was granted.
yeah,
Oh,
um
the quarterback.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's just it's a lot of craziness right now.
I just
um
don't think when it comes to college football, I just don't think there's a lot of clarity when it comes to a lot of these rulings, and these random things come out that these players are going back to school, or these players are asking for a 6 year of eligibility, or you get this random 26-year-old who comes out in the draft, and it's like, how is this kid still playing college ball at 26? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's there's no clarity, from the NCAA to the fans and the public, in my
No.
opinion.
And
Not like the NFL or any other professional sports league.
no, and I don't blame these kids. It's not their fault that they have
No,
the option
absolutely not.
to do this. This is from up top. This needs to get solved from up top. These kids can't be blamed for this.
Not
I
at
There
all.
think
are opportunities.
one of the other problems that you would most likely would arise from that is there's such a wealth and resource gap between a lot of schools. Like if you're not an SEC team, or if you're not, like if you're like if you don't have Alabama money to throw around and get these players what they need, like you're kind of excluded out of that.
Yeah, no, there definitely are the super conferences, have been built, and those conferences had been talked about, essentially from when I was a teenager till now.
Yeah,
Um,
listen, if you're not out of the SEC or the Big Ten, you don't really matter in college football.
yeah,
It's
You know, it's similar to Major League Baseball. There's certain small market teams that don't matter.
agreed. Um, so, we're going to keep touching on some more NFL stuff. We're just going to do a rundown to start the show. So, Major League Baseball, Kyle Schwarber became the first player to reach 40 home runs this year.
Just
Mr.
every year,
OG
every year.
um, ties the Phillies' multi 40 home run season record, which, wow, I actually didn't realize that the Phillies had that kind of a power shortage in the past, but
yeah,
um,
that's crazy.
uh, very interesting that, he at his age is still one of the best hitters in baseball, or the best power hitter in
Dude, he
baseball. And
doesn't regress.
no,
He doesn't regress. He's the same player. He's the same player and hitter every single year.
yeah. Um, so that's it for the rundown. Let's get into the NFL because we had some really interesting stories in the last week. Um,
Yeah.
the first question that I have for both of you guys is, are the owners and the players in the NFL, really all sports, but particularly today, let's talk about the NFL. Are the owners held to the same standard as the players and the coaches?
No, no, I don't think
No,
so.
not
So,
at all.
so recently, Jed York, um, arrested in East Palestine, Ohio, in a prostitution ring, okay, where the body cam footage shows basically he arrives at a trailer park to meet a sex worker. Okay.
Yep.
Um, his
Had that
alias,
$140 in hand. Listen,
yes, had quite a bit of money on him for the services that he was going to buy. All the cash discovered, his phone was seized, pleaded no contest to disorderly conduct and whatever this means, possessing criminal tools. I don't know. Um, the NFL is reviewing under personal conduct policy. Reviewing is an interesting way to put it. Um, I guess I need to give them some grace with this one because we still don't have um, a conclusion to, players like Josh Jacobs, although really, I mean, pleaded no contest means that this isn't going to be fought in court. He pleaded no contest, essentially admitting his guilt.
yeah,
So
Correct.
it actually, I don't know if it's the same thing. I think that the NFL has all the power in the world and should be able to step in and do something, not nickel and dime him with $100,000 fine that doesn't mean anything to these billionaires. Um,
Yeah.
I just, you know,
The question is, are they going to do that though? And I don't think so.
I don't think
Listen,
so either.
listen, here's my thing, right? Just from a human level for a second. The owner of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, everybody says the players are the face of the franchise, right? But if the owner is out there misrepresenting the team and acting the way he just did and getting himself arrested, I would look at that as he's representing the whole team. That's a bad representation of the whole team. So if he's not held to that standard, if he's not holding himself to that standard, as a fan, as a consumer, how do you think the rest of the team is being held to that standard? You can't believe they are.
Yeah.
You know, in business, you look at the top down. Well, in this case, we're looking at the top down. This is the owner of the San Francisco 49ers.
I agree.
It's
And
a horrible look.
I think that the penalty should be, and you could argue whether this is so severe or not, he shouldn't even be allowed around the team for a year.
Nope.
He should be suspended from any NFL facilities for at least an entire year.
A bare
And
minimum.
and I would, because of what you just said, Rich, the owner is as much the face of the team as any coach or player is, right?
Sure.
How about draft picks? You know,
Ooh.
Strip them.
So why is that demoralizing? Well, congratulations, you have now hindered your team's ability to operate. So
Yep.
not only did you disgrace yourself and you embarrass the franchise, but we're suspending you. We're taking I take a first round pick. Take a second round pick. Whatever. Take
Take
a
'em.
day or take a pick that's going to hurt, right?
Something that sends a message so nobody else does it.
Yeah. And then that would actually constitute some actual accountability
Sure.
from owners as opposed to what we see go on, which is essentially, stuff just gets swept under the rug and it's business as usual. I don't
Listen,
agree with that.
we do it with tampering when we tamper with players that aren't ready to be negotiating contracts.
Yeah. Yeah. So listen, and just because you're the owner of a team and, that team is um, surviving on your financials does not mean that you should not be held to the highest standard and be accountable for
Yeah,
the things that you
agreed.
do.
I would
So,
like to point out that on similar vein, Mike Vrabel has not really faced any punishment for that whole thing with that. If you really look at it, Diana Rossini got punished more severely than Mike Vrabel did.
yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
He said that issue, situation was a personal matter and did not violate the league's personal conduct policy. So they would not investigate or fine Vrabel. And Diana Rossini, on the other hand, internal investigation, lost her job.
Yeah.
So if we're to follow trends here, the NFL is going to protect its own at the end of the day. Goodell is going to protect the money. That's at the end of the day.
I
So
agree. My only argument is I think Vrabel's a little easier to protect in that scenario because it wasn't a completely illegal act.
fair.
That's true. He wasn't arrested. There was no crime. He wasn't being accused of a crime.
Correct.
However, I do agree with Nikasi's take that there was no. I mean, we don't know if there was no investigation. The NFL may have privately investigated the matter, and their findings
Sure.
could have been
Privately
hugely detrimental,
Totally.
right? Right? Because we're talking about somebody who, in Diana Rossini, who had built very strong relationships to the point where, she was influencing decision making amongst coaches and general managers.
Oh yeah. 100%.
So I I still would love to see any information, and I think over time we will get more information. But I think the
Absolutely.
NFL has done everything in its power. The Athletic doesn't get to talk about the NFL on the level that they do, basically without being a partner of the NFL. ESPN doesn't get to do that essentially without being a partner of the NFL, and so on and so forth. So these there's a symbiotic relationship, and both sides are going to protect each other from whatever they can. And I
Always.
think a lot of that went on here. And there are way more layers to that one than this. This one's pretty simple. He simply got caught in a prostitution sting.
But then let me add another vein to that.
Mm-hmm.
Across the pond from the NFL, the NBA. Look what happened to Donald Sterling, right? They
Yes.
they they
Yep.
they they shot him out of a cannon.
Yeah, and there were so many more layers there, in my opinion, because of the way that he was treating people and the way that he was speaking and talking about people, right? You're
Yep.
never going to get away with that. I mean, listen, the NFL
No.
had to do what they did with John Gruden. I think a lot of people still like John Gruden, right? But when the news came out, they really didn't have a choice, right?
There's no
Yeah,
protecting him at that point.
Yeah, there's no protecting anybody at that point. It's the shield or the silhouette or whatever you want to call it is going to come before any man, including an owner,
Sure.
when it goes to that level, because at that point, that's horrendous PR that's never just going to go away.
and that
Um,
Never.
not only to mention just also considering what that does to the players and how how
correct,
they would feel.
correct,
You know what I
and
mean?
then in the NBA, which is predominantly a black league, um,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of players are, and certainly a lot of the white players, and Spanish players, and all players should have a problem with it. So yeah, it's it's not something that is just going to get swept under the rug. This thing, um, because of the way it played out, the way that it's just kind of moving quickly, and he pleaded no contest, and it was a plot very much the same like Kraft, right? Where it was literally a prostitution ring inside of
Ring.
a massage parlor,
Yeah,
and the only reason that it got thrown out was because it violated an amendment, because there was a camera as part of the sting operation in a place where people were stripping naked to get a massage. That's a normal thing, right? To strip down to get a massage, that happens all the time. That's not breaking, there's nothing, there are no laws being broken there. So he used that
Correct.
loophole to get the case thrown out, right?
crazy.
His lawyers pretty much told him right away that that's what he needed to do, and they were right.
Money
And
buys you. Money buys you great things.
what a
Oh yeah,
terrible job by that sting operation to not know that they
To not
couldn't
know
have a
that.
camera.
that you
I mean,
can't
just
record in a massage parlor.
yeah. All they needed was the audio. They didn't need the video. The audio would have gotten the job done. That's just
Yeah,
not
that would have
using
been
your
the
head.
telltale.
Um, but yeah, this one, you know, pretty straightforward. But then, in the Robert Kraft situation, even though the case got thrown out, you know, shouldn't that have been an argument that something should have been done with him at the time?
Sure.
That's personal conduct policy detrimental to the team, isn't it? That
I
you have
I
the
think
court of public opinion kind of against you on that one.
Yeah.
I think what it ultimately boils down to is that Roger Goodell as a commissioner and Adam Silver as a commissioner of two different sports, it one of them I think will let certain things go when the money gets compromised.
Well, listen, at
Or
the end of the day, it's a business, right?
the
They
business.
have their financials and the business as a whole at their best interest. And if covering up certain things or defending certain people or sweeping things under the rug and just kind of letting things go is best for business or best for the league at the time or the financials, we all know they're going to do it.
Ben
Yeah.
Roethlisberger,
Ben
Ray
Roethlisberger.
Yeah,
Lewis.
we've seen
Ray
so many
Lewis.
examples over the years. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Ray Rice.
And
Ray Rice.
I guess we shouldn't get too crazy, except the NFL is a very public, highly viewed, highly popular worldwide now league, right? It's not
Yeah.
the same thing as it happening in, for at a corporation. If this had happened to the CEO of a corporation, you might not have ever heard about it. There's a chance
Agreed.
that you might not have heard about it.
Agreed.
So it's just it's two very different situations here. This needs to be held to a higher standard, in my opinion, because how many of us grew up watching professional sports? How many of us grew up watching the NFL? I think that the precedent for the example being set is very important here, and it's just a bad job by the NFL over the years, not holding ownership to the same accountability as the coaches and the players. And I just hope that they start doing that. And this would be a good time for them to start right here.
Make an example.
Even if they don't suspend him, whatever, him being suspended or not doesn't matter at all to the team. Take the draft picks away. Take a third round pick away.
That would send him. Take the draft.
Take the draft pick away.
Take the draft pick away.
Ooh-wee.
Then now we're really talking accountability. Now it's,
Yeah, because you're at that point, you're not only sending a message to the owner himself, the front office, the players, the fans, the league. You're sending a message to anybody that is in touch with the sport that if you act out of turn or you act in a way that is frowned upon or illegal, it's going to impact not just you, but everybody who follows this thing and loves this thing and has a passion for this thing. It's a much grander scale at that point.
I agree. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. Enough of owners doing crazy things. Although you could argue that Jimmy Haslam for the Cleveland Browns is an owner that does crazy things, not necessarily one that gets caught doing things off the field that are illegal. But the Browns are in the news because Deshaun Watson had a press conference recently where he cited being booed heavily by the fans of Cleveland versus Buffalo and that it felt personal. He claims that the fans cheered when he had his Achilles injury.
They did.
And, questioned whether his relationship with Cleveland could be repaired, feels more support on the road than at home, but wanted to make sure everybody knew there were no regrets coming to Cleveland. And, this is all part of God's plan, was him going through this adversity. And, he's leaning on his family right now. Subsequently, and, I was one of the people saying it, but the national critique from pretty much everybody who I listened to after that press conference was, this should probably be career ending. And if it isn't career ending, this should be the last time we see him as a Cleveland Brown. Make him a healthy scratch for the rest of the year. He can't handle this. He's in a bad mental headspace. There's no way he could play football for the Cleveland Browns. Then the Browns turned around and named him the starting quarterback for week 1. So a couple of things that I'm left with this. Okay. New head coach Todd Monken knows that they have 2 games on the road to start the season. Now, despite Watson not playing really well in preseason, Shedeur Sanders hasn't exactly been world beating on the other hand either.
Nope.
I can understand from a coach's perspective the scenario where, okay, maybe you figure out how to win these first 2 games on the road and then you come home to a much happier fan base week 3. I'll tell you this, though. If the Browns are 0-2, he cannot be the starter week 3. There will be a
No.
riot in those stands.
Nope.
Listen, my only take on what he said and the things he said in that press conference, just from the outside looking in, this guy should just be happy to have a job in the NFL. The fact that he's making the money he's making, the contract the Browns gave him after everything he went through, the fact that he even started any of this controversy is wild to me. Like, dude, just be happy you're out there and you have an opportunity to still play.
Yeah, that's
It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, and Jimmy Haslam, the one who signed the first official fully guaranteed contract for a quarterback, even after his off the field situations, which don't feel like they've ever resolved in the eye of public opinion.
Which is why the Browns fans don't like him and are booing him.
Yep, and I could certainly understand that. And listen, I questioned it from the beginning the second that he went there. You're telling me this guy who just faced all this trouble is going to be able to look into the eyes of 52 teammates and get them to believe in him going forward? I didn't see it.
And they don't.
Yeah, from the get-go, I thought it was a terrible move. It's still proving to be a pretty bad move, and PO'd owners around the league was essentially, the fallout from the contract. Because, all right, if this is what we're going to start doing, then we better make it worth it. And the Browns decided to do it, and they didn't make it worth it at all.
Well, let's talk about what this really means.
Mm-hmm.
The writing on the wall is that the Browns do not have a confident answer at quarterback.
Correct.
And
yes, absolutely.
So Todd Monken is going with the idea that getting someone having a quarterback who is at least fully accustomed to the pace of professional football is the better way, the better strategy to lean on. Not saying,
and from a coach's perspective, that makes sense.
It makes sense. His preseason was
going with experience and maturity makes sense. I don't disagree with that.
Now, with that, obviously, we've seen some of the footage of the preseason. We've seen some of the stuff that's been happening with him and Shador under center. It seems as though this is the same situation that's going on in Atlanta with they're realizing that Tua might not have been really the answer, at least what it's looking like right now. And you go with Michael Penix, who's already familiar with the offense.
Listen, at the end of the day, the other two things about both those situations, both Atlanta and this situation, is the contracts, right?
Yeah.
You have a contract like Deshaun Watson, and you have a guy in Shador Sanders who's not making much money because he fell to the 4th round. If you have two guys that aren't beating each other at all, you're going to go with the guy you're paying more money to justify the contract. And the same thing with Penix. Atlanta spent the 1st round, 10th overall pick on him. They're paying him big time quarterback money because he was a 1st round pick. They're only paying Tua like 10 or 15 mil a year. So if Tua's not showing out in camp, they're going to go with the kid that they invested a 1st round draft pick on. The contracts and the capital matters, especially with the quarterback position.
He's making $46 million this year, by the way,
which is insane for a guy that has played one or two games in 2 years.
Yeah, certainly not living up to the contract.
No.
$230 million fully guaranteed at signing.
And
crazy.
no matter what had happened this year, because of the way the contract is structured, and I wanted to make sure that I touched on this, so thank you guys for hitting on the guaranteed contract again. They would have needed to essentially made him a healthy scratch all year if they didn't decide to start him, because they couldn't cut him. The cap hit from that would have been exorbitant over a multi-year period. They need to wait until this coming off season to then cut him. And by doing it that way, they prorated the cap hit so that it's less impactful on their ability to run the team.
It's probably less dead cap.
Yeah, it's less dead cap. It's prorated over a certain amount of years.
Sure.
They cut him now. It's like they take it all on at once, and
makes sense.
It's no good. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch this clown show all year, which is crazy because it's a very talented team, but with a new coach and essentially no quarterback, right? Now Minter Todd Monken is a well-respected OC. He's been a very well-respected OC for years and years and years.
For years, yeah.
Okay, he's a Harbaugh. Both Harbaughs love the guy. He's getting his first shot in the coaching ranks. When you get your first shot, unfortunately, you have to go to places like Cleveland and Arizona and the New York Jets to get your feet wet and learn how to fail and learn how to coach. And then normally your next stop, if you're any good or you have potential, then that's when you start to see some success.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that I think that Monken grabbed him by the collar and like, hey, we're making you the starter. So that press conference that you just had, you need to follow that up, which he did. Okay. And attempted to clarify his remarks and said that He's an emotional human being and his emotions got the best of him. And
he had to tone it down a little bit, dial it back.
Yeah, shifting back to football. I'm taking this seriously again, trying to get people to believe in him again, right?
Of course.
But unfortunately, once the toothpaste is out, it's kind of hard to put the toothpaste back in.
Yes.
So I'm not buying it.
Especially with the media. You can't really repair your relationship with the media once you damage it.
And I don't think his teammates are buying it. I think that this is simply a coaching decision, that they're just going to go with it. And listen, winning cures everything.
Yes.
Right? So if the Browns start the season on the road and come back 2-0, they're going to come back to a much happier fan base, even if it's Deshaun Watson at quarterback.
Correct. Mind you, those two games are Jacksonville and Tampa Bay.
What do we got? 0-2? Probably.
I mean, I'm gonna definitely say they lose to Tampa Bay. I want to see what we see out of Jacksonville week 1 because Jacksonville didn't have an overly impressive offseason.
I would agree with that.
I still think Tampa Bay is a serious team in the NFC South. So they definitely lose to Tampa. We'll see what Jacksonville gives them week 1.
Yeah.
Totally
I kind
agree.
of the same. I think they split it.
All right. So does anybody else have anything to touch on with Watson before we move on?
Nope. I'm good.
I didn't mean to do that, by the way. So Nikasi, huge Bears fan, as he introduced himself, biggest Bears fan that I know.
Bears.
So since we got you on, brother man, let's talk about the season preview for the Chicago Bears. Let's talk about your perception of the NFC North, how things are going to shake out. And, very interesting that Ben Johnson in a presser, I think it was a couple of weeks back or 3 weeks back, essentially admitted to the press, well, hey, we're the number 1 regression candidate in the league, like not running from the fact that If you're looking at the analytics, you know, the Bears are a regression candidate, a big time regression candidate. So with that being said, the floor is yours.
I think that number one, I feel as though it is a very astute observation. Obviously, like with Ben Johnson's success year one, for him to be able to replicate that, let alone improve upon that, would literally involve the Bears going to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And while I'm not
Agreed.
saying that it's entirely out of the realm of possibility, I just applaud the fact that he is self-aware enough to make a call like that. And that being said, kind of gets me thinking that he's already thinking about, all right, well, what were our weaknesses last season? You know, definitely pass protection. The Bears defense let up a lot of yards, which led to a lot of takeaways, which was nice, but it exposed the fact that you could very well throw on the Bears defense. So I think that them being able to, tighten up with the secondary, I want to see what Nashawn Wright does. Well, I don't even I am cautiously optimistic. Well, Nashawn Wright he's no longer on the Bears. He's
I was gonna
actually
say
your team.
he's on the
Enjoy it,
Jets.
by the way.
He is. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, the
You're
Jets
gonna, I
decided
think
that they needed to bring people in who could take the ball away because
I
that
think
was a problem
you're
last
gonna
year.
enjoy Nashawn Wright. He's one of those,
My
definitely.
my question to you is, what do you expect out of Caleb year 3? Because I think year 2 we saw a lot of back and forth. We saw a lot of ugly, and we saw a lot of flashes where we were like, "Wow, this kid could be an elite quarterback in the NFL."
I
What do you see him putting it all together to where he could find the common ground, and that erratic that erraticness that Caleb has, kind of gets faded out?
what I would imagine in a perfect scenario is that Caleb Williams, his passing numbers improve and his rushing numbers go down.
That would be good. That would mean the offensive line is playing better.
That would mean the
Yep.
offensive line and the improvements that the Bears have made to the offensive line have been shown to be successful. I am very glad that Joe Thuney is like one of the number one advisors on the whole operation regarding the offensive line, because
He's a champion.
the resume speaks for itself.
Yep.
And our offensive line has got nothing but better since adding him. So ideally, in a perfect world, Caleb stays upright. There's plenty of offensive weapons on that team.
Plenty, absolutely.
I mean, who
Let's
knows?
just touch
Colston
on his
Loveland.
stat. Yeah,
Colston
Colston
Love-
Loveland is an elite tight end in the making.
People
Colston
forget
Love-
DeAndre Swift is there.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's just touch on his stats real quick from a year ago, right? 3,541 yards. I guess we would call 3,500 to 4,000 average in today's NFL standard.
Yes.
20 touchdowns, 6 picks, completion percentage of 62.5. So you definitely want to see that go up in year 3. I'd say if he could get that from 65% up, big jump from him. And QBR is one thing that stands out to me, 43.3, not a very good QBR.
Yeah.
I think the thing that really jumps out to me about Caleb is the fact that he is a rare playmaker. And
Yeah.
even though you want to see completion percentage go up from what it is, he only had 6 interceptions. Now, how many fumbles did he have? Because, man, that's really taking care of the ball when you think
Yeah.
about the kind of playmaker that he is.
Let's see. Let me see if I can find fumbles real quick.
And then Koss, think about like where you see the other teams in the division and realistically where you think the Bears are gonna finish this year.
I see. I have no doubt that the NFC North is probably going to be one of, if not the toughest team.
7 fumbles, by the way.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. And I'm sure those fumbles are, a product of poor offensive line play. So
Yes.
Sure.
even in a perfect world, those numbers go down. Regarding the Bears' position in the NFC North, I again, it's going to be an ugly, ugly fight in the NFC North again. I think most, if not all, of the teams have, I would say, improved. Green Bay, I'm still kind of on the fence about because of the whole Josh Jacobs' situation is up in the air. Plus,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
they're
we were
out.
talking about that.
Yeah, that's there. Plus, Dobbs is no longer there. I believe Dontavian
Yep.
Wicks is no longer there. So they're
Yep.
really
They
thinning
lost some
out.
playmakers.
So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Yeah, Rich, you actually brought something to my attention today that I wasn't aware of. And that was essentially that I guess the Packers came out and made a statement about this, or was it written? Was it
Yeah,
from one of the beat writers?
Packers GM came out today and did tell the media that they are preparing for football without Josh Jacobs. Now, that's not saying that there is any clarity on the situation with Josh Jacobs, but the team has had talks and they are preparing for as if they have to play football without their star running back.
So, I mean, that's still not a lot of information. I mean, I think a lot of us, well, here's what I would say to that, right? It is a lot of information in the fact that, okay, maybe this means that they're preparing sooner than we think, and that
Sure.
this could actually come down pretty soon. We have seen situations in the past where a player was essentially given a year and then,
Correct.
suspended subsequently the following year. That's kind of where I saw this one going. It sounds like it might not go that way, though, for this one.
No, I mean, if they're prepping now,
That means
there's a chance it could be coming in the coming weeks.
Ugly stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. You talk about conduct detrimental to everybody. It's not what you want to see on any level and any walk of
No.
life. And I'd be happy to see something done about it sooner than later. I think that the
Sure.
NFL would have had a huge problem on it, and it still potentially will have a huge problem on their hands if he plays any game this year
Yeah.
without being suspended. I think that they'd be better off getting ahead of it than having to face all the
Absolutely.
PR, the bad PR, and the flack for it. That's for sure.
100%.
So yeah, so the Packers, we're kind of on the fence about them. What do you think about the Lions this year? Give me your take on the Lions.
I mean,
Are they back even without Monty? Are they going to be strong? What you think?
that is a question that remains to be seen. I mean, it feels as though it sounds as though Dan Campbell is putting a lot more of the focus on having the ball in Jared Goff's hands and Jahmyr Gibbs's hands. Now, what does that look like? We see a lot more passes from Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield. Does that mean, we see Jahmyr Gibbs lining up, in the backfield, taking on that power back role, taking on more touches per game? I don't know.
Be
Keep in
more
mind
the
the Monty
workhorse.
keep in mind the Monty replacement was Isaiah Pacheco, so we do know that Isaiah Pacheco could be a north-south runner.
Yes, that is
Very
also
true.
It also is important to note that I believe Jared Goff had this finished the NFL last year with the second most touchdown passes.
Yeah, he balled
Listen,
out last year.
Jared Goff is quietly one of the most underrated quarterbacks that I've watched in my lifetime. Nobody gives him respect, but he's quietly one of the top quarterbacks in the league every single year.
So I'm of the opinion
That was
that you have. He does have. Yeah, I mean,
Fair enough.
listen. Going to a Super Bowl early in your career and then making a run to an NFC Championship. He's most certainly on the radar, right?
Has to be.
I think that he is definitely on the radar. In my opinion, I think that there are two different types of very successful quarterbacks in the NFL. Okay. You have your hero ball guys like Josh Allen that are unicorns that literally
Sure.
don't exist. And then you have your players like Jared Goff. Okay. You put him in the right scenario with one of the strongest offensive lines in the league with essentially what could be, he could be considered one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the NFL right now, right? And
Sure.
Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't think that's going too crazy. And
Not
then
at
you
all.
have all of the high flyers at receiver, and then your gigantic tight end red zone target. Man, that offense has been built to perfection. And I kind of equate it as the Josh Purdy, the Purdy effect, right? The Brock Purdy effect. It's like Brock Purdy, very accurate quarterback. I don't want to take anything away from the guy. He's very smart. He knows how to run an offense, but he knows how to run an offense coached by Mike Shanahan with all of those players around him and another elite offensive line. So it's like there are two different kinds of quarterbacks. I put Jared Goff in the Brock Purdy side of the conversation.
That's fair. That's a fair analysis. I can't argue with that.
That's also very fair. And I think that Dan Campbell really has no intent of changing that. So he's got St. Brown, he's got Jamison Williams, Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Isaiah Pacheco,
And the best right tackle in the NFL.
and the best right tackle in the NFL. Yeah.
Listen, looking at the North, it's the Lions and the Bears at the top of that division, and if you take Josh Jacobs out of the equation for Green Bay, I mean, I even stand by that statement even more so.
All right, so I think the general consensus amongst the three of us is the Lions have a good chance to be a contending team this year, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think all three of us kind of on the fence about the Packers, even though I do really like Jordan Love. But let's talk about the Vikings. Okay.
Yeah.
In comes Kyler Murray, kind of supplanting, the kid quarterback who just hasn't done himself any favors with the media or his
Nope.
play on the field in the last year and a half. And there is a chance that a player like Kyler Murray could come in and solidify an offense like that with, still one of the best receivers in the league, I think, in Justin Jefferson. Where do you guys stand on the Vikings this year?
Listen, in my opinion, people say what they want about Kyler Murray. This guy has never had the weapons he's going to have going into this year. I mean,
agree.
Justin Jefferson is the obvious, consensus maybe top 1A, 1B receiver in football. But even looking at the running backs in Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones, both are better than any running backs he's had in Arizona. The other wide receivers, I mean, Jordan Addison's a better number 2 than any other number 2 he's dealt with in Arizona.
They also have Jawan Jennings now, by the way.
Yes.
I was just going to say Jawan Jennings at wide receiver 3, TJ Hawkinson at tight end. And the Vikings do have not a top O-line, but an O-line that's going to block. He's going to have time to throw the ball. He's going to have time to roll out. The defense is decent. This is probably one of the better teams that Kyler Murray's been a part of.
And even if their offensive line doesn't hold up, this guy has shown the aptitude, even at his size, to be able to have that escapability and to still be able to throw the ball down the field. And hopefully he could leave the Call of Duty and all that other stuff behind him now.
And it's just ball, baby.
And it's just ball now. So go ahead, Koss. You're going to say that could hinder him?
Until Modern Warfare comes out.
So what's the next one? The remake of Modern Warfare 2?
The remake of the remake.
The remake of the remake. Okay. So we'll be on Kyler Murray watch
when
that comes out.
I do think that Kyler Murray has the athleticism. It was always Kyler Murray's biggest strength. He is insanely athletic. And I think that on a team with an O-line that may or may not be better than what he was dealing with in Arizona, I agree with everything that what you guys said. Receiver core, night and day different than what he was dealing with in Arizona. You know, running back situation. I would even maybe say like having a defensive situation. You know what I mean? Like maybe having a defense that doesn't need to see Kyler Murray throw 3 touchdowns, 270 yards to get them the game.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever had a defense, guys. I couldn't tell you the last time Arizona's had a top defense in football.
They haven't, and it's tough to have a good defense when your offense isn't helping out your only player on offense, which is your quarterback. Sure. So it's tough to have a good offense when you have one guy. You know? So yeah, I agree with all of it. I think there are a lot more questions than answers about the Vikings. I think those answers are probably come within the first month of the season, though. I think we'll have a pretty good idea.
100%. I think they end up like maybe third.
The one thing I'll say, and something that none of us have touched on when talking about the Vikings thus far, is I do truly believe that Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic coach. I really do. Like, I believe he's a fantastic coach. That McVay tree, that's real. I think in a few years we're really going to look at him as one of the top coaches in at minimum the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, when you have the both divisions in the West, those are very strong at head coach, and then you have this one that's also very strong at head coach. There's just log jams everywhere at the strength of head coach. So, yeah, I do agree that O'Connell has proven to be a relatively good coach so far throughout his career. I think a lot of people would like to see him get the answer solved at quarterback, being that he was a quarterback and being that he was a quarterback coach. So, if he can, if we could see any direct success from that, then people will be back on the bandwagon with him. There were people a couple of years ago that were saying he was the smartest coach in the game. I was like, okay, I mean that's great. Maybe he is, but in order to be labeled like the smartest coach that anybody's ever seen, then you need to come up with stuff that nobody's ever seen, and you need to win. So, with that being said, I think pretty much have our rundown for the NFC North. Go ahead, Koss. Give your prediction on. So you said the Vikings are going to finish third. Who you got finishing last?
Third, and I think it's last. It would either have to be Green Bay or Minnesota. With this whole Josh Jacobs situation, depending on the severity of it, that could severely push them back, especially and in a division as competitive as the NFC North, you do not want to lose games.
Nope.
And it's one of those situations. I feel as though, like, I agree. I think that Jordan Love is a very good quarterback. I think that in the right situation, he can lead that team to wins, which he has done time and time again. He can take them to the playoffs, which he has done. But if it's all on his shoulders,
it's going to be tough.
I think that's going to be tough because
If
once
you take Josh Jacobs out of the
take Josh
offense,
Jacobs out of that,
it
they're
falls
gonna lock
flat.
in. Yeah, the safeties and everybody's gonna push. Everybody's gonna line up back because they know that you're gonna throw the ball. They're gonna
Yep.
read play action. You know what I mean? It's a recipe for disaster.
I
And
agree.
Agreed.
like I
We'll
said,
see what kind of running back room it is because it's also Green Bay where there's a lot of weather.
there is, yeah, that is true.
Yep. A lot of cold football.
A lot of cold football. We'll see what Marshawn Lloyd's capable of.
Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd, that's a name that people have been hearing a lot more of, especially getting ready for their fantasy drafts and leagues and all that good stuff.
Yep.
So we got the Vikings and the Packers in your mind are finishing 3 and 4 in whatever order. Are the Bears finishing first or are the Lions finishing first? And how do they match up against each other this year? Is there a split or does one team take both games?
Ooh wee. See, that is tough. And
That is tough.
ultimately, what I think those games are going to boil down to, not necessarily the players, but the coaching.
Yep.
That is those.
Yes.
Dan, it's a very, very cerebral, multi-strategy head coach against just we're just gonna keep on scoring on you until you say uncle.
True.
You know,
That's a really good
love
analysis of
that.
that coaching matchup.
I love that.
so I mean that could really go either way. Those games are probably going to be decided by a field goal. I'm
Yeah.
predicting those. Um,
Who you
I
got?
I think they split.
Okay.
I think they split.
I think that's fair.
Splitting is always fair, especially in division matchups like that.
Well, when did they play in Chicago, right? Because if they're playing in Chicago later in the year, you know, the Lions who don't deal with weather because they play indoors are going to have to deal with weather.
That is also very, very true. And they play Chicago, I believe. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
This is supposed to be a nasty winter, y'all. So
It's
November
gonna
20,
be.
is it November 26th? No, that's the Detroit game. They play against Detroit in November. And then they play in January 3rd.
can you imagine
It's gonna be a
Oh,
if
cold
that
game.
game
you know
is for a
how
division
cold
title?
You know how cold that game is gonna be? Ooh wee. That's
Yeah,
why I
that's
said it's gonna
either going to
split.
be -10 or a whiteout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or snowing, blizzard.
Feels
So,
like -12.
so the Bears are more, listen, that's home field for them. Playing in weather, that's something they've been doing for 100 years.
A
If it
windy
comes
city.
down to a game like that, you gotta kind of feel good about their chances of slowing down the fast-paced offense and the high-powered offense of the Lions, right?
I'll say this till the day I die. A cold Soldier Field is the hardest stadium to play in.
That's
I
fair.
would say, and that's just on a given. A cold Soldier Field where there's stakes involved, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why the only team the Bears lost to in the postseason was the reigning MVP was the MVP
I'm
Fair.
glad you brought up
and a Super Bowl.
I'm glad you brought up the infamy in playing cold winter playoff football in Soldier
Oh, it
Field,
makes a difference. Oh, it makes a
because
difference.
I know it makes a difference, which is why I want to get your thoughts on the fact that the rumors of the Bears moving to Indiana have become a real thing.
Yep.
What's your
Yep.
thoughts on that as a longtime Chicago Bears fan?
As a longtime Chicago Bears fan, one of the thing that I'm going to regret is that I would have never been able to see a game at Soldier Field. Yet.
Fair enough.
Yet.
Okay.
Because that's a real conversation. It's looking like the Bears are going to get moved to Indiana.
It is looking like the Bears are going to get moved to Indiana. While
Now, go ahead, Koss. Go ahead and finish.
I feel like while the general football fan in me would not really care, there's thousands, tens of thousands of Chicago Bears fans who have seen joy and heartbreak and everything in between at Soldier Field. And I know that they're definitely not happy about that.
Yeah.
And like you said, Richard, like you were alluding to, Rich, the weather implications behind that. Is this new stadium going to be domed? Is Indiana generally a warmer area? That area of Indiana generally warmer than Chicago? I mean, I feel
Give or
like
take, I guess, depending.
I guess, but
Maybe a little bit different because the wind isn't right off of the Great Lakes. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
My curiosity is, I wonder if the recent success of the Indiana Hoosiers has given the NFL a reason to want to put a football team in Indiana.
No, I mean here's what I think it is, guys. And I only really like to touch on politics when it matters for the discussion. Okay, the bottom line
Fair.
is that it's going to cost the Bears a lot less money to operate outside of Chicago than within
Mhm.
Chicago or within the state of Illinois. I equate
Fair.
it very much to, Rich, you know this, our teams not playing in New York City, right, but playing across the river in New Jersey, a much
Fair.
more cost-effective situation. It's
Yeah.
very similar to what's about to happen with the Bears. Bears fans, in my opinion, are going to be upset about this. And then in 5 years, they're going to say, no big deal. This is our stadium now. Yeah, it's in Indiana, but you know what? We're still the Chicago Bears. So they're still going to be
Yeah.
called the Chicago Bears, just like our teams are called the New York Giants and the New York Jets. So I think that it's something that will end up being not too big of a deal as time goes on.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Maybe initially it will be, but you're right. It'll pass.
Yeah, listen, there will be, like you guys said, those old OG Bears fans that have been through it all. Soldier Field is home for them on Sundays. Those guys,
Yep.
you'll never be able to convince them that it's no big deal.
Nope.
And I would never try to do that. The general Bears fan, especially one that doesn't get to see them play in person every Sunday, it's just not going to be that big of a deal to them. It's going to be close enough to the city of Chicago that they're still going to be able to market it as a Chicago team.
Yeah.
So all those things need to factor in. And I don't really think it'll change the identity of the team if it's an outdoor stadium. As far as the weather, it's still very cold in northern Indiana during the winter, very cold. So that part of it, I don't think will change too much. But all right, Rich, who you got winning the division in the North?
I think right now as it stands, I got to go with the Lions. The Bears, the Bears are the close second for me. I think the Bears make the playoffs. I think it's going to be a wild card run for the Bears. In terms of third and fourth, I got a weird feeling about Minnesota, man. I think Minnesota's going to be a scrappy team. I think they're going to be the third place team in that division, but maybe they win 7, 8 games. Maybe they're a scrappy 7, 8 win team. I think Green Bay is set for a little bit of a fall off, believe it or not. Whether the Josh Jacobs situation is set up for him to play or not. I like Jordan Love. I don't like the receiver room. I don't think he has players to throw the ball to. I think their defense very much consists of Micah Parsons and who else? Like I don't know. I'm not a
Fair
big
enough.
believer. I'm not a big believer walking into Green Bay this year. Didn't make a lot of noise in the offseason. I'm not going to say they don't have a good head coach because I do think LaFleur is still a good coach. But I'm not a believer in the talent on that team this year. I think there's tons of talent in that division, and I think the three other teams above them have more talent. It's my honest opinion.
Fair enough. I think
That is, yeah.
in a previous pod, I did my predictions for the entire league. So
You did.
I had the Lions winning the division and going to the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to change that now. I'm going to stick with it. But so we think that this division's going to send two teams probably to the playoffs,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Two teams.
I think potentially the NFC North has the division to be the most competitive division in football.
Do we think
Yeah.
that the West is going to send three teams in the NFC? Because
That's
only so many divisions could send that many teams. You know what I mean? You got 7 spots
Is it
per
weird?
conference.
Is it weird that I think the team in the NFC that's going to send three teams is the East?
Koss, what are your thoughts on the East? Do you think they're sending more than 1 or 2 teams to the playoffs this year?
That's so tough because on paper, the NFC, I can definitely see at the very least 2 teams from the NFC East going into the playoffs.
Which ones?
I think for sure, I think it's objectively Philadelphia and Dallas.
Okay.
Not saying that New York couldn't sneak in because they are very prone to sneaking into the playoffs. They are very prone to locking in and playing playoff football when they need to. And they are very much one of those kind of like you said, Rich, one of those scrappy teams that's maybe not winning every game, but every game is a possession game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Listen,
I mean,
taking my bias out as I wear the OG logo on my short, there's a real chance that the NFC East has three playoff teams, man. I mean, the Eagles are the Eagles. I think Dallas's offense could potentially be one of the highest powered offenses in football. And John Harbaugh's leading the Giants, man. There's no way you could convince me that the Giants don't at least have a shot. You know, they got to
So
show up on week 1 and prove it, but you can't tell me there's not a shot.
So with that being said, that's 3 teams. That leaves 4 teams for the rest of the conference. 3 of them are going to be division winners. So you're telling me that the NFC West or the NFC North potentially will be the only other division with another playoff team, and that the East. Do you think that the East has the best chance to send 3, Rich? We're talking about between the whole conference.
All right, so we're walking into a year, right, where listen, you look at the West, right? Super Bowl champs. Okay?
Yep.
You got the Rams.
Yep.
You got the Niners who are walking into the season completely beat up. So I don't think that's the division that sends 3.
That's one that I'll give to you.
yeah.
I don't think that division sends 3. Okay?
Okay, fair. So that you think that division sends 2 though?
There's a chance it sends 2. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the Rams to me are Super Bowl contenders. Does Seattle repeat what they did last year? We'll see.
The Rams also have Myles Garrett now.
Yeah, bro, and they're probably getting Aaron Donald back.
And they're gonna get Aaron Donald.
I get it. I understand.
Okay. All right. So we're saying, listen, I have a hard time even with all the BS going on in San Francisco, seeing them be a team that's going to be on the outside looking in. I give you the benefit of the doubt that the West sends 2 teams. With that being said, that means that only one team in your scenario from the North gets in.
Yeah,
You
fair
got the
enough.
Lions. You got the Lions and not
That
the
would be the
Bears, right?
Lions.
Okay.
That would be correct.
Are all of us in lockstep that the NFC South will be the worst division by far, and we'll
Yes.
probably be looking at another scenario where the winner is a below 500 team?
100%.
You know what? You know what?
What do you got, Goss?
I'm
Give it to
going to
us.
disagree with that.
Okay, give it to us.
I believe that I thought that I think that Atlanta's defense is good enough for them to continue to keep them competitive in games and win. But the quarterback situation, now knowing what we know now, I'm kind of like, because there were points last season where we saw the Atlanta Falcons really catching fire, but the team that I think might shock everybody in that come next season is Carolina. I think that Carolina with the I think that Bryce, I think that we're not observing the improvement of Bryce Young the way that we should be.
I think that's fair. I think he has gotten better from year 1 to year 2.
He's gotten better.
And I also feel as though that the rest of that division is kind of very much up in the air aside from Tampa Bay. You know what I mean? New Orleans, the Saints don't really have an identity offensively right now. You know what I mean?
That's also true.
Here's my argument on that entire division. I don't think a single team out of all 4 of those teams did anything significant in the offseason to get better. So for me to think that the outcome in that division is going to be any different than last year, I can't.
I think the one argument that you could have made based on what was going on at camp was the Saints, but now they lost what's his name, the rookie receiver
Jordan
Tyson, who was essentially looking like their best player offensively, and now he's out for 2 months.
Yep.
So that's a huge deal. I think that this was going to be a very heavy passing offense, probably either way, and he was going to be a monster target for them. And with him going down, I think that hurts their identity, kind of like Nikasi's alluding to. I don't think that it's as clear right now.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, I mean, look at Tampa Bay. Mike Evans isn't there anymore.
Very true. And with right, and listen, I love Baker Mayfield. I love the competitor. I love
he's
everything about him. He's a gritty competitor.
He's a baller.
I think that there's a scenario where you could question what's going to happen with him and them this year. And I wouldn't be able to give you too much flack over it.
Listen, he's already upset they haven't extended him.
That's the thing. There's some contract stuff going on.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
great that they haven't.
Yeah, to me that's insane. To me, if you maybe they don't believe in him long term, and at this point they view him as a bridge. I don't know.
Maybe.
Is he getting a little older? Yeah, he's a little older, but is he not worth a 3-year deal? And then
who are you?
I think he is.
Who on the market is going to provide what Baker provides to that team?
Now let me say this, and that's a good question, right? Because right now it's tough to envision that. I will say this though, and Baker's doing himself no favor with the ask. I don't think that he is a 55 or whatever he's asking for $1 million a year quarterback either.
No,
so
I agree.
There's some give and take there, which is why it got contentious, even before camp started. And I just have a feeling that maybe the ask is very high, not because he is so concerned about getting paid, but maybe that's another way of saying, hey, either commit to me and let's rebuild this thing around me starting now because we just lost Mike Evans, or I've already been on a couple of teams. I'm comfortable with the idea. I'm ready to move on. Maybe that's the thought process there.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, any other news y'all want to touch on in the land of the NFL? I think that's pretty much it, right? Go ahead, Kos.
You know what? I'm going to say it.
Go ahead, say it.
I'm going to say it. That Bears offense. Just watch. Just watch. I think not. You know what? Let me retrace that. I think the most important. What I hope to see is that I think what the most important changes that have happened to the Bears as a team, I feel as though the most important ones are going to be made within the coaching staff. I believe that is going to be a key in a lot of the success that the Bears have or don't have this year. So, a key person to watch, Antoine Randall, assistant head coach.
Assistant head coach.
Assistant
Yes.
head coach.
That is interesting.
20-point comeback in the preseason. I mean, it looks as though Ben Johnson is not necessarily he's not necessarily appointing himself as the brains of the entire operation. He's appointing a council around him. And I think we saw that with Al Harris.
Yes.
And his implementation in that secondary.
Listen, every coach is as good as his supporting staff.
I mean, Declan Doyle's in Baltimore right now because of how good of a job he did.
Yeah.
We're gonna I'm gonna miss him.
Kos, listen to yours and my prediction about who would win the NFC North, and he decided to bring it back and let us know that he disagrees. And the Bears are the team, or the golden team, or the golden offense in the NFC North this year.
I have yet to see anything that gives me concern. The only thing that I am concerned about is really just the injury stuff, which is going to happen. And I had a thought about this in the car. I don't know. It just seems, and I know I don't want to, I don't even want to like speak this out because I don't want to even talk about the possibility. But what if this is one of those seasons where, given that what we've seen in training camp and a lot of the injuries that we have already seen, what if this is like a continuation of like the COVID year? Remember when there were a lot of injuries in the COVID.
A lot of injuries. Yep.
And it makes it more of a wild card when that happens.
So that all the predictions are up in the air. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You lose your wild. Look at San Francisco. We could have, when the season ended last year, we could have thought that maybe San Francisco would have definitely been at least in the, making noise, in their division. But
it's true.
After injury after injury after injury.
Oh, they fell apart. They absolutely fell apart.
I don't really know, man.
Yeah, listen, it's always a wild card, a huge wild card in the NFL. They
gotta stay healthy.
Yeah, the hits come, they keep on coming. Listen, let's touch on real quick what the future is going to look like, right? We love staying present. The present is very important, but sometimes we also like to talk about the future. Roger Goodell came out, I think it was a couple weeks back, or maybe it was the last one you and I did, Rich, where he essentially said, football in other countries is going to happen. There are going to be teams, and a lot of people
Yep.
started thinking, okay, well, what's the league going to look like once they expand? Were they going to do it to like 40 teams? And, or four teams going to, 4 teams, 6 teams, or 8 teams going to be in Europe. And if that happens, then ultimately what would have to happen, right? Because at that point you're expanding the amount of games too, right? We would
Yep.
go from at least 17 to probably even 20 games, right? With 2
Absolutely.
bye weeks included. That would also constitute an uptick in your minimum roster size
Yes.
because injuries are just so huge now.
They're gonna pile up.
Yeah, you cannot
Yep.
survive a 20 game season in the future within a 40 team league with 20 games, with only 53 man rosters and 16 practice squad guys. It would have to be significantly stretched out from that. So
Correct.
there is going to be a day, um, in the future. Don't know when, don't know how far down the road, but there is going to be a day in the future where the rosters are going to have to be significantly expanded one way or another to account for the amount of injuries that take place in the NFL.
Sure.
I think we also kind of have to wait and see what Goodell means by expansion, because that could mean so many different things. You know, whether it
What's your take on what do you think he means by it?
I that's the thing. I don't know. I don't do we see we could very well see an inclusion of you know um more teams playing in Europe. We could see more teams playing elsewhere. We could see teams playing in China for all we know. Who
Sure.
knows? Um but I also feel as though one of the things to consider, and I think we kind of saw instances of it last year when playing abroad, is that some of the stadiums, because they're more for like actual football,
Yes.
they're not necessarily suited for American football. So you could also potentially see injuries happening that way. Um,
Correct.
Yeah.
I
Fair enough.
What you could also consider um is maybe like w- an idea of expansion. Does that mean that we do what we did with like the XFL, or like the what is it, the AFL? Remember, like, or
Yes. The XFL,
like,
the
I don't know.
crazy rules.
I don't
Yep.
know. That's why
Yeah. I
I'm not.
mean, listen. Once they expand, the possibilities are endless. The game could change. That's for. It's a good. That's for sure what could happen.
Well, let me touch on my thoughts, especially because Nikasi, you said that could mean any number of things, and that's fair. We don't know what it's going to look like. However, we do have what? How long have they been playing games in Europe now? They started the London series 10 years ago at the minimum, probably
Yeah.
longer than that,
Yeah.
right?
It might have been long. Might have been longer than that. We might be
They've
going on
been
almost 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, they've been putting their footprint in Europe, particularly in London and that region of Europe for a long time now. So it just makes sense to me that when expansion happens, those be the areas that get touched first. There are a ton of NFL fans in Europe all over the place, in England, in Germany, in Spain, in a lot of these countries. Um, so that's kind of how I see it starting. And then from there, yeah, costs. I mean, listen, the NFL, you don't threaten the NFL with a good time and making money. They'll play games anywhere. They'll play games on Mount Ararat if you let them.
Yep.
So, you know, if there's money in it, they're going to play there. And that's where the more they play in those locations, that's when you could really start to see the idea that they have of maybe this is an area we want to expand to. That's just the way that I see things. as
Oh,
of
yeah.
right now. And
I'm
man, you
sure
look
that.
at it, there are huge fan bases in Europe.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Just for fact purposes, the first game at Wembley Stadium was played in '07, and it was actually played by the boys and the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, 07.
October of 2007 at Wembley, Miami Dolphins versus the New York Giants.
So this is 19
Mm-mm.
years of international play.
Mm.
Yep.
That's an entire generation of people over there that have grown up, maybe going
Yep.
to games and becoming football fans. I mean,
Mm.
you got to give it to the
Crazy.
NFL, man. There's a reason why they've grown the way that they do, and it's just because they only make big money moves.
Correct.
Yeah.
But other than that, if we're done with the NFL, we just kind of just want to touch on, pretty much one more thing that I think is interesting, and then we're going to call it for tonight. And especially, I'm curious to see if Rich had heard this, being that he's the baseball nut.
Yeah.
So, Joey and Jesse Buss. And let me refamiliarize our audience with the name Buss. Have been in the news a lot for the last couple of years. Okay, they were
Yes.
fired by their sister. Okay, they all had jobs with the Lakers. They still have an ownership stake with the Lakers. They have now backstabbed their sister into trying to sell their majority stake in the Lakers, and Jeannie Buss has now motioned to block that sale. So with all of that stuff going on, I think it's really interesting, and I wanted to make sure I got to this at some point, that
Yes.
Joey and Jesse Buss have joined the Padres ownership group officially as of this week. So
The timing's impeccable.
it's just incredible with the amount of things that have been going on in the last few weeks, and all of our discussions have essentially been, surrounding all the controversies of ownership, and especially in the NBA and Major League Baseball. And here we go with another crossover with
Well,
the
I was gonna say,
NBA and
let
baseball.
me add another layer to the fact that there's a crossover between the Padres, the Buss family, the Lakers. The Padres are in the same division as the Dodgers. And we
Yes,
touched on what's going on with Dodgers ownership too in the last episode. So,
yes.
bro, it's like we're in a multiverse. It's insane what's going on.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like if you didn't know any better, right? You would think that the NBA and Major League Baseball got together and said, "Hey,
Yes.
let's create a WWE like script, because all publicity is good publicity, even if it's bad publicity.
Yes.
And we're going to drive viewership with a WWE like script, because this is what's going on here. This whole timeline of events is something that I am not familiar with as a sports fan. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this
No.
from the
No.
ownership level at any sport, and the fact that it crosses over multiple sports is just insane.
Listen, you're from a little bit of a different, I guess, generation of sports fandom
I'm
than
an old
some of
guy.
us, right?
That's fine. You could call me an old guy.
All
Everybody listening knows.
listen, all due
Oh, I call
respect,
you old guy.
you grew up watching a different era of sports, right? You grew up not hearing a peep from your owners, not hearing a thing in the media about your
No,
owners.
no. Yeah.
Today, the owners are in your face. They're on Twitter. It's just a different day and age, man.
Yeah.
These guys need to be in the face of the public for some reason.
Yeah, the only owner that I could remember hearing about constantly was George Steinbrenner, because he was a literal lunatic nutcase. We all
Yeah.
love him.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. He was one of the best owners in sports, because for a reason, but he was a nutcase.
Yeah.
So we heard his name a lot. But yeah, other
Yep.
than him,
I
I
also
can't think of it. Go ahead, Goss.
I also would like to point out that one of the things that we're also in the wake of are that a lot of owners, stakeholders in these teams are athletes.
Yes.
Athletes
Yeah,
from
fair
other
enough.
sports. Michael Jordan owns a NASCAR team. You know what I mean?
A
Like
very successful NASCAR
a
team.
very,
Yes.
very, very successful NASCAR team.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's like, and you see people, and then you have powerful people like Rich Paul. You know, there's
Yeah.
so many different layers to 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 ownership and representation to those ownerships. I mean, like, I don't know.
There's a lot of influence. There's a lot more influence than we know about. I mean, listen, like you just mentioned, people being like, athletes being a part of ownership groups. A lot of people don't know Patrick Mahomes is a part of the Kansas City Royals ownership group now.
Yep, yep.
Yep. He positioned himself very nicely ahead of time there.
Tom
Yeah,
Brady
yeah.
in the race.
Life after football looks nice. Yeah, Tom Brady
Mhm.
with the Raiders. Like these guys are still involved.
And that's something that we haven't touched on much on this podcast. The Tom Brady situation and him calling games and owning a team, you know, very controversial. We'll see how it goes this year. The
Yeah,
NFL hasn't touched on it too much. I just think they know that Tom Brady prints money and they'll
Yeah.
put his face anywhere. I think
sure.
there's a huge conflict of interest. I don't think it should be allowed to happen, but what I say, the NFL doesn't necessarily care what I think. They care about
I mean,
what's going to drive viewers.
to that point though, like, couldn't you kind of argue the same thing about people like John Madden or Tony Romo if we're looking about like bias? I mean, it's Tom Brady's different, obviously, because John Madden never owned the Raiders and Tony Romo never had ownership in Dallas. But like, I feel as though at the end of the day, we do kind of we we don't give credit for how objective sometimes these guys can be in their jobs.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. Tom Brady is fantastic about calling with his job on TV calling football. That's not my angle at all. It wasn't my decision. It's the decision of 31 other teams in the NFL block his access from the building, right? They don't
Mm-mm.
want him in the building. They don't want him to see what's going on, although he probably gets it secondhand, from his team anyway.
Yeah,
Because it's simply a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
We're not going into our strategy with you. We're not going to tell you what the situation is with this player and where the health is at right now. That is going to be off the record that we don't even want you to say publicly on TV. All this kind of stuff happens and goes on behind the
yeah,
scenes. They don't want him to be able to have that access
And it's
and
and it's
then
him. It's
use it.
him. Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, I'm sure they interview players all the time. Joe Buck,
Every
Troy
team ahead
Aikman.
of time does. Yes.
Yep.
yeah. Well, here's
Yeah.
the other thing too, right? Is we've yet to really see much of the Tom Brady effect on the Raiders football field yet, right? Now we all know it's well documented that Tom Brady had a good amount of influence on Fernando Mendoza. Now we all know he was the clear-cut one quarterback coming out of the draft, but we know that Tom Brady's on record loving Mendoza, working with Mendoza. He's on record stating he's had conversations with Mendoza. So let's see what happens this year when he broadcasts games. If Mendoza struggles a little bit and Tom Brady's commentary is a little bit biased, maybe maybe then you'll see that conflict of interest come forward.
Yeah.
If he's not biased and if Mendoza's struggling and if he's on point with his broadcasting, well, all right, then he gets the message. He knows what he shouldn't do.
And it's a tough ask, right? Because if you're the league,
Yeah.
you allowed him to own the team and you're allowing him to analyze football games on TV as a color guy.
Yeah.
So you allowed this conflict of interest to happen in the first place.
They got blinded by the
So yeah, so it's like, I
And
don't
that's what
know,
it
man.
is. It's all about money. As
too
long
much.
as the guy prints money they're gonna turn a blind eye to it anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, folks, I think that's going to wrap up this episode. I want to speak. I guess I will speak for Rich, and I want to thank Nikasi for joining us.
Yes,
As our
thanks,
special
Koss.
guest today. And
Pleasure.
yeah, man, and we look to have you on in the future, definitely to talk football, basketball, whatever it is that we got going on at the time that you might
Yes.
want to talk about with us. So you're invited back for sure. And with that being said, be on the lookout for more episodes from us. I've been slacking lately. I wanted to get an episode out on Monday. In hindsight, I'm kind of happy that I waited because it just meant that we had more content to talk about with the three of us tonight.
This was an epic episode.
Yeah, this was really good. So I want to again, I want to thank Nikasi. I want to thank my co-host Rich, and
Thank you. Thanks, Koss.
we
Thank
will we will be back very soon. Football is upon us. The Major League Baseball playoff races are heating up,
Definitely heating up.
and we will eventually even be previewing the start of the new NHL and NBA seasons. So look out for all those episodes, and we should see you guys before this week ends with another one. Peace.
Bear down,
Peace.
loser.